Welcome to Keyword Saratoga, week number 2, and we're wrapping up another fine week up here at Saratoga. It is August 2nd, the August place to be, and I'm Seth Merrow, here from equidaily.com, sitting in with Steve Bick, the host of Sirius Satellite Radio's At the Races. Steve, good morning.
Good morning.
And as I said, another great week of racing. And it seems to me August place to be was the truth, because I think the buzz really came back to Saratoga on Friday with that Twilight card. It was also College Day. Yep. I think that the crowd tended very young. Seemed like the crowd had a great time on Friday. With the Twilight card, the last race went off about 7 p.m. I was still walking around at probably about 8. I walked out to my car, and there were still people out in the backyard kind of sitting at the picnic tables having a good time. And it just seemed like the buzz came back. Opening week, certainly they had good crowds and good racing. A little bit subdued, though, it seemed, but Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I think things kicked in full gear.
Yeah, I agree. And even on Thursday with the St. Patrick's Day shortage of T-shirts notwithstanding, the energy level just picked up. And from there, you could sense that we were into a pattern, and the handle and just the whole atmosphere always seems to pick up. And there's always either weather issues or the slow start issues that make people right away panic. Oh my God, it's going to be a bad meet. What are you talking about, going to be a bad meet? It can't be a bad meet. We're at Saratoga, and that was borne out all weekend. Tremendous racing, and if anything, you fold in what went on at Monmouth yesterday, Seth, and then you fold in little Winslow Homer, little Jim Dandy result, and you've got yourself a recipe for an unbelievable Travers. How about Leon Blushewicz jumping up? Tremendous. Admiral Alex.
My question is, did you get the word on that? Because the word was on it. I didn't get the word on that. Where was I when that went out?
That horse, they knew about that horse in Macau. There was everybody.
Wasn't the morning line like 10-1 and went up at 5-2?
You know what's funny about that? Eric Donovan knew that the horse was a buzz horse, and so he said, normally I'd make this horse 20-1. He made it 10-1. He could have made it 2-1. It was hysterical. But here's the thing: a lot of times those universal good things, they end up the track. And indeed, this one came through in fine fashion and performed up to snuff. And the exciting thing is that it puts Leon Blushewicz right out in front again, moving toward Travers. The horse, I think, has got a big for sale sign on him, and he could be yours.
But that is the game plan, they say, to go from that debut maiden breaker into the Travers. That would be a story in and of itself, just getting to the gate off of that, but much more, running well in the Travers. So we'll see how that pans out. Let's take a look now at some of the stats of the week just passed. And before we do that, I do want to mention, of course, we're brought to you every week by Whitehall Stable. We absolutely appreciate their support here on Keyword Saratoga. Whitehall Stable. Taking a look at the leading jockeys at the meet so far, obviously Javier Castellano with that huge day a week ago yesterday, the 5-win day, put him right at the top of the list early on in the meet. But John Velasquez has quietly been having a good meet. They're currently tied now, top of the jockey standings, 10 wins each.
Not so quiet, actually. And Johnny, in fact, is out for a writing title here. I ran into his father-in-law, Leo O'Brien, on it must have been Saturday evening after the races, and Johnny is riding everything, no matter it be a Pletcher steamer or as he rode in Saturday. He rode for Gary Siaka and was on a big price, and yet absolutely had a shot at the top of the stretch to maybe win the race. And Leo says Johnny's riding great, and the interesting portion to this, when you talk about Castellano, just because guys are riding well, you hear people talk about, I got to use Castellano. That's not the way this works. The horse has got to merit the respect of your inclusion, because they're just as capable of an off ride as they are of brilliance. Castellano yesterday on Trombetta's horse, on Regal Warrior, I don't know what he was thinking there. That was just a terrible effort, and Trombetta not too happy with it. So they're jocks. They make decisions. They're not always the right decisions. When they're riding well, it seems like every decision is right, but that's not always the case. You can still go in when you needed to go out, and you can go out when you needed to go in. So
absolutely, and there's no question, a tough job. And like any other sport, it seems when these guys get into a zone, they they make the right decisions just subconsciously,
Generally,
unconsciously, and it seems like maybe John Velasquez is kind of in that zone at the moment because he has been riding well recently. Just below that, of course, Ramon Dominguez, who has that amazing streak of New York riding titles. He's got 7 wins, so he's behind the top 2 who are tied at 10 wins. So we'll have to see how that shakes out over the next few weeks. Getting down to the trainers, great story there still. Chad Brown, the locally born and bred Chad Brown, at the top of the trainers' standings right now with 6 wins over Todd Pletcher with 5, Linda Rice and a group of others behind with 3. But Chad Brown having started 13 starters so far, about just a little over half of what Todd Pletcher has put out with 24 starters. But Chad Brown so far red hot early on.
Well, it's easy to be red hot when you're dropping $300,000 horses into 25 claimers, and not that that's a knock on Chad. He said he was going to be aggressive, and it's something to keep track of as the meet goes on, because the droppers he's winning with, and they're not. I mean, they're daring people to take the horses. That's part of that whole game. But at the meantime, he's got a goal of 20 wins for the meet, and he's right on target. So they're going to be aggressive, and it sounded like he made a secret of this. I mean, Dave Grenig wrote the preview trainers to watch and said directly, Chad said we're going to play the claiming game aggressively. So take advantage, even when horses don't seem to be in form. When you're dropping them from allowance company down to the bottom,
they get the wake-up call.
Yeah, exactly.
And that is worth knowing. I just sat in on the News Desk show with Gene Wood. I was the guest handicapper today, and we talked about a Ramsey horse in one of the races dropping from stakes company into a claiming event, and we talked a little bit about that. It's worth knowing as a handicapper the outfits that place horses aggressively, because a lot of times dropping raises some red flags for horses, but some outfits place their horses aggressively, and you can be a little less cautious in those cases on the drop-down kind of moves.
Absolutely. I think today we got Rick Dutrow with the dropper, and Rick's got a few of those that he's popped in. In fact, you had the one scratched at the gate in the nightcap on Friday that Freddie Lenclue decided he wasn't going to ride. All the experience that Freddie Lenclue has, of course, in his long career. Oh, wait a minute. Not that long. He scratched a horse at the gate, and I don't think Rick Dutrow was too pleased.
You're wound up today.
I am. I'm on the muscle. Put a 6'5" hold on me.
Shifting over to, it's always interesting to see, particularly early in the meet, where the winners come from, because Saratoga is one of those meets. There's a select few in the country, Saratoga, the Keeneland Spring and Fall, where horses really ship in from all over the country. And it's interesting, as I say, to kind of take a look and see where they came from. No surprise, most of the winners so far have come from Belmont. 41 winners so far from Belmont. Right underneath, in the second spot, the number of winners from Churchill Downs, 14. So Kentucky shippers have done pretty well. Horses making their first start are in the third slot with 9 winners so far. Monmouth, 7 winners. I was a little bit surprised. I kind of had a feeling maybe Monmouth would be a little stronger, but I guess 7 winners, given the number of races we've had so far, isn't too bad. And it also may just be a factor that for the money they're offering down there, maybe people are not so anxious to ship around. Maybe they're happy to go for those maiden special weight $75,000 races and whatnot. So Monmouth in there, Delaware with 3, Aqueduct with 2, Gulfstream. A couple of horses have laid off since Gulfstream. Won a couple races. Woodbine.
Any from Rockingham or from Lincoln Fields?
No, but with 1 winner each. Horses from Finger Lakes, Suffolk, Prairie Meadows, Louisiana Downs, Keeneland, Pimlico, Philadelphia, and Colonial. But Colonial, you got an asterisk. That was the steeplechase winner. So it's just kind of fun to see where the horses are shipping in from, and again, getting the job done at this meet. More
in terms of where winners are coming from on the actual racetrack in terms of performance. One thing that was certainly on display over the weekend, and you can basically go to Saturday to look at this, the races that produced some enormous prices. Exclusive Scheme in that opener, the Fasig stake race. Here was a race, and I'm guilty of missing this completely. Looked at the race, Seth. I wrote up the analysis on Saturday morning, and I wrote directly, a race completely without pace. Where's it going to come from? Oh, it comes from Exclusive Scheme, who walks on the front end for Billy Badgett at 25-1. Not convinced of that? Go to the 7th race, and Eric Guillot. We talked about Eric Guillot on the show last week. Here's Gio with a 44-1 shot. ARCARO, same exact situation. A horse that if he was loose on the lead was going to be formidable. He just marches around the track, opens up on the turn under Davey Cohen, and romps home, wins by 3, 89, was it $90 paid?
$90. And didn't he also have a little back class if you look back far enough?
This is the same scenario as we saw with Champagne Doro in the Acorn, whereby a horse that has speed, and if it needed to use it, was going to absolutely be dangerous up on the front end. And usually you see that more, on the most part, on grass races where horses will be allowed to get away and jocks don't move. This was on the main, and we said Eric Gio was dangerous, and particularly with horses like this. And I want to throw in one more from Saturday, and this was the maiden race where Volker was the buzz horse and seemed like the right horse when you handicapped this sixth race, the maiden special weight. And Volker was going to be a fairly short price, ended up at 5-2, was one of only 2 horses in the field, Seth, that had started previously. And then you had to look at probably the Asmussen Firster, Astrology. There was Arthur's Tale that looked formidable, potentially from Darley and from, I think that was the Owen Hardy, Albert Tranny. But the point was, here was Settle for Metal from Mark Hennig, which was one of only 2 previous starters in the field. And if you did any pedigree work, you can find it on Formulator, Settle for Metal, a half to Dat's Echo, who had won here, a half to Manny Bavin, the 2-year-old filly that Steve Placeris had that won here. And here, this one was coming back, 6-1 Morning Line, which was okay, goes off at 21-1. Was absolutely a board play. You see this, how do you not move? So you've got to do homework beyond the obvious, because Mark Hennig, not necessarily a guy that wins all the time with second-time starters. I thought this was one of the amazing results of the weekend. I got lucky with the triple because I keyed off a Volker, included Astrology. I threw in Settle for Metal because just for that reason, that he had an
And I'll admit that one went under the radar for me because I'll look at the pedigree a lot with the first-time starters, with the horses that have some experience. I'm willing to focus on that. But this was still a lightly raced horse with some upside. And when I did hear after the race, Manny Behaven was in the pedigree, I thought, oh, wow.
Well, and the other one, Dad Echo, too.
Mark
trained Dad Echo. And both siblings, winners at 2 on this racetrack.
And you talked about a big price in there, the 44-1 shot that won. And again, another thing I like to take a look at week in and week out is just how the favorites are doing, how the long shots are doing, and just breaking down so far after 9 days of racing. We've had 88 races so far. 31 favorites have won. That's 35%. So pretty healthy percentage of favorites so far. Horses under 10-1, 75. Horses between 10 and 20-1, 9 of those have won. Horses over 20-1, 4 of them, 3 of those on Saturday alone. So if you look, I look back at last year, 2008, and in the first week of 2008, 5 horses came in at 20-1 or better, but then for the rest of the meet, there was a total of maybe 5 more in the rest of the meet. Week 3, week 4, zeros. Right. So you wonder if the trend continues, if maybe we've seen some of the longer, maybe it's just something early in the meet where trends or horses get overlooked and people start to pick up on some of those things you were pointing out, and so we'll have to see how that shakes out as the rest of the meet continues. So we've taken a look at the week that's in the bag, week number 2. There is, of course, this afternoon left, but we've taken a look at what's happened so far. We're going to step away now. When we come back, we'll sit down with our first guest, Travers Manley, a young guy who's jumped into the game in a big way. We'll talk to him when Keyword Saratoga continues.
Nice. Yo.
Welcome back to Keyword Saratoga. Right now we're joined by Travers Manley. Happy to have him on the show. A young guy who, as I mentioned before the break, has jumped into the game in a big way and started a blog that's going to allow you to kind of follow through the adventure. We'll talk about that in a couple of minutes. But Travers, I want to welcome you to the show. But I also, Travers as your first name, certainly folks, racing fans from upstate New York are familiar with Travers. And I just have to ask, is there a racing-related story to your first name?
Yes, I'm named after the Travers Stakes. My dad grew up going to the races, and Saratoga was always his favorite track, and the Travers was always his favorite race. And so he said, well, I'm going to name my first son Travers, and that's what he did. And that's my name, and it's great to be up here where when I tell people my name's Travers and they say, like the race? Rather
Exactly.
than where I'm from in Kentucky, and I say my name's Travers, and they say, how'd your parents come up with that one? So
People in Kentucky say that?
yes.
Go figure.
But it's great that we have a young guy here, big fan of the game. But having named you Travers, I have to say probably the folks sitting off the set watching, mom and dad, probably even bigger fans of the game to name their son after a stakes race. You got to love that.
I think my dad more than my mom, but she likes to go.
She went along with it, so we'll give her points for that.
That's right.
Now, obviously, with the name Travers, you're kind of maybe destined to be a racing fan, but give us a little background on how you did get interested in the game.
Well, I grew up in Louisville, Kentucky, and grew up going to Churchill Downs, and we would make the drive down to Keeneland all the time, and I just grew up a racing fan, and just that was pretty much most of my childhood. When I was really young, we owned a few racehorses, so I grew up going to the barns with them and everything, and I got bitten, and that's what I decided that I wanted to do, and so here I am.
Well, let's get into a little bit about your blog and how you've jumped into the game, as I alluded to before. I think this is a great story because certainly the stereotype of the game that's put out there is the fan base is made up of middle-aged guys chomping cigars and trench coats. Certainly, if you come to Saratoga on any given day, walk around the backyard, you know that's not true. But the rest of the year, that's the stereotype that's put out there. So it's great to see a young guy like you, 21-year-old college guy out there jumping into the game. You've hopped in, purchased some horses, and as I said, you've got a blog that's going to allow people to kind of follow your adventure through. Why don't you take us through the process that brought you to that auction in February, what you did, and how people can follow it on the blog?
Well, it was in the right around the Keeneland January sale that my dad said, well, the market's about right. We might, it's a buyer's market. Maybe we can get a mare, and you're learning a lot. I'm an equine student at the University of Kentucky, and you're learning a lot, and you've got jobs and everything, but maybe you'd have a chance to learn a lot more if you were in the industry. We were making decisions with your dollars, and you became a horse owner and a breeder. And so, when that opportunity came up, and I was the underbidder a couple times in January, and so we pointed towards the Fasig tipped in February, and was the underbidder a couple more times, and finally HIP 260 came along, a mare Sky, with a even the score filly by her side, and I was able to get her for $3,500 and became a horse owner.
And I think we may have some shots of the horse that I pulled off the blog, both Sky and you've named the foal as well.
Right, I've nicknamed her Skype.
And now
It's cute.
there is the mare and the foal on the farm, and that was a picture, as I say, taken off the blog. Now, folks are going to be able to follow through as you take the foal to the sale. So the game plan now is what as you go forward?
The game plan is to sell her as a short yearling at Keeneland January, and she'll be consigned with Warrendale sales, and hope it'll be a little bit smaller sale. We were originally pointing towards Keeneland November, but we thought with 5,000 horses pointing towards that, go into a little bit of a smaller sale, send her to Keeneland January, get a few more people to look at her, and maybe somebody will take a shot with her.
And why don't you give us a little idea? You've hopped into the game now. You're an owner. What's it been like being an owner for, 4 or 5 months now? And is it what you expected? What happened that you didn't expect?
Well, I think that just the amount of decisions and the amount of day-to-day work that goes into being a horse owner and a horse breeder, and every single day I'm getting a call from my farm manager is Frank Mitchell, every day there's a decision to make, and I didn't think that it was going to be that difficult. But when it's your money and your dollars, and I've got a lot of decisions to make at where to send the horse, who to consign it, who to breed to next, whether or not I want to send her out, where to send her to sales prep, what time to wean her. It's amazing all that goes into it, and I'm learning a lot. I never thought that I would learn this much, and I'm really happy that I've had this opportunity.
Steve?
I got to ask Travis because one of the aspects of this that's interesting is that you decided to go on the breeding side.
Today, as we reported, the Howley Invitational Challenge
as
Cup
opposed
was
to,
run, as a matter of fact, just a short
as opposed
while
to
ago during
racing
the
side. And of course, with kind of a depressed, particularly broodmare market, might have been a great time, obviously, to acquire a broodmare.
Right.
But did you balance the idea of maybe getting into racing on the racing end first, as opposed, or what influenced that decision?
Well, I would say money had a big influence in it, and the fact that I got my 2 horses for $3,500, and I can keep them at a reasonable board rate and everything like that, and I own 100% of them. Whereas in a racing, if I were to get into that, and the training fees are so much higher, and trying to spend the money for a horse that, claiming one or whatever, and the amount of capital that I'd have to have produced up front to get one, and probably would have only been able to afford maybe 10-15% of a horse. Sure. And here I was going to be able to be the guy that made the decisions, and that was what I wanted, my dad wanted for me, and we wanted me to be able to make the decisions. And if I was in a racing syndicate, I'd be able to call myself a horse owner, but I probably wouldn't be able to make much of the decisions, and I wouldn't learn as much. So
no, the rationale makes sense, and the next thing that comes to mind is amongst contemporaries, amongst students. Where do you go to school?
The University of Kentucky.
You're at UK. So in terms of that community, obviously there's lots of other kids that are involved one way or another with racing, but what's the reaction when you let them in on what's going on?
Well, some people say I'm crazy. But and some people say, well, that's the dumbest idea. What are you doing? You're still in college, and you're trying to become a horse owner, and then there's some people that are like, man, that is really cool. I want to come see them. And I'm in a fraternity, and I bring my fraternity brothers out all the time to come see the horses. And there's a lot of them that will drive out there, and when we leave the farm, they'll say, man, I want to be a horse owner. Can we own a horse someday together, Travers? Can we own a horse? And it's not too hard to get people if you just bring them out and you show them the horses. And,
I agree.
And so that's what I've been trying to do as well.
Yeah, and you had a great entry on the blog that was called "Be Careful Around Thoroughbreds or You Might Get Bitten,"
right.
Which was a play on words. In that it was a blog entry about taking some of your friends out, and they got bitten by the bug of horse racing. Just seeing your 2 horses and kind of. Falling in love with them, and as you say, then becoming interested in the game. So I think it's really a great venture that you're into, and being able to pull other young people in is nice as well. Now, you're still a year away from graduating,
right.
UK. So what are the plans after school? Are you planning something in the racing industry?
I'd love to do something in the racing industry. I'd like to work for a racetrack. I'd love to work for a sales company. I interned at Keeneland for a year because I said, well, then that way I can do both. And I'd love to do something with that. I might work with a consignor. There's no definite plans right now, kind of keeping it up in the air. I do graduate in May, so just kind of hoping that something comes up, and might even apply to the Darley Flying Start program. And
nice.
So thinking about
Great
that
idea.
and just trying to keep options open and see what's out there.
So the foal you have now, Skype, as you've nicknamed her, is headed to the January sale. Your mare, though, is in foal again now, though, right?
She's in foal to Parading, who's over at Claiborne. And
the Phipps horse, Parading.
Yeah, he's a Phipps. He was trained by Shug McGahee, and he's a son of Pulpit, and sons of Pulpit right now with Sky Mesa out there and Corinthian that are starting to, they've got some good looking horses coming, and and blood doesn't get too much better than that. It's out of a full sister to Storm Flag Flying. The second dam is my flag. The third dam's Personal Ensign, and for the amount of money of the stud fee, he stands for $3,500. I said, well, for this amount of blood, let's take a shot. And it's standing his first year, and so maybe there'll be some optimism around him, and maybe somebody will like him.
Can't go wrong with the breeding on those Phipps horses. They're all regally bred. So Parading on top. And you also told me that the mare herself had won on all 3 surfaces?
She did. She won 4 races and a little bit over $100,000 in her racing career. She won on the turf twice. She won on dirt, and she won on synthetic.
So you've got the one coming for sale in January. Folks will be able to follow that on the blog, and then I assume you'll continue the blog on, and the foal to come will also, folks will be able to follow the adventure as well.
Right, I'd love to keep the blog going as long as I can, as long as I have time to do it, and right now that seems like I'll have a lot of time, so, and it's been a lot of fun, and I've gotten a lot of good feedback from people that have enjoyed reading about my horses and everything, and so I'll try to keep it going with the next one, and maybe keep it going for my entire racing career.
Well, Travers, I was given a heads up on the blog a couple of months ago, and I've followed it. I think it's a lot of fun. You can see the URL on the screen right below, reachingforroses.wordpress.com. I also realized that if you go to Google, you type in Reaching for Roses blog, you'll come up first or second on the list. So I would recommend anybody go and visit it and follow along on the adventure of Travers Manley and his foal to come. Travers, we're happy to have you on the show this morning, and we wish you a lot of luck with both of these horses in the future.
Thank you. I appreciate being here, and it's been a good time.
Right now, we're going to take our second break. Stay tuned. Keyword Saratoga. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Keyword Saratoga. I'm Seth Merrow, as every week, sitting in with Steve Bick, and we're joined now by Glenye Cain Oakford. We're thrilled to have her because she is the DRF's breeding expert, so to speak, as well as other things. But of course, tonight and tomorrow night, the Fasig-Tipton yearling sales. I certainly advise people to head over there because the public is invited. You're not going to go in and raise your hand on any of those horses, but you can stand and look through the glass at the folks in the pavilion. And then the backyard is great. The backyard is a nice open-air paddock. There's a concession stand out there and a bar, and you can watch the horses get walked around before they go in. And I always say this, we think we're the gamblers over here on the front side, but boy, you go a block up the street on East Avenue, those are the real gamblers out there. So Glenye's going to take a look and preview some of the horses coming up later. But Glenye, just let me ask you some basic questions first, as you do follow the breeding industry. Obviously, the auctions have been impacted a great deal by the economy the past couple of years, but have things turned around a little bit since January?
I think everybody is certainly hoping for that. Now, whether it actually has or not is still, it remains to be seen. We've had very few horses sell in the yearling market so far. There will only be about 200 at this auction, and there were only, not very many more than that in July. So it's still very early to see where the market is. However, I think most sellers feel at this point that we are seeing some stability, and that's what they wanted to see. There were declines at the Fasig-Tipton July sale, which was the first yearling sale to kick off the season. So things are still down. But people, I think, feel a lot more optimistic because they feel that the floor has been reached. We're not going to take any more of these dramatic stock market-like plunges that we saw in 2008. So that's a good thing. Solidity is what people are after, and I think they're hoping to see that again here.
Are there certain sires that maybe have held their own through this market?
Well, that's actually been a very interesting story. One of the big trends had always been that people wanted, or in recent years had been that people wanted freshman sires. They wanted the horses that had nothing but blue sky associated with them. They didn't want any proof that a horse could lose by that stallion. We've seen a complete reversal of that trend since the recession hit, and so now it's the proven sires. It's the AP Indies, the horses that have always held value. They're even more valuable now to these bidders who want the proven thing. They want the Medaglia d'Oro, they want the distorted humor, they want the old fashionable sires in addition to those young ones that I just named who have a record already. So that's one of the trends that we'll be spotting here too. I think the proven sires are going to continue to do very well.
Is there a good mix of those types in this sale?
Very good mix of those types. And one of the interesting things about this catalog in particular too is that we're seeing some European sires, which is a little bit unusual here. And a big one is Oasis Dream from Juddmonte. That used to be a horse, it would be a horse that in the past people would look at it and say, that's turf, that's all European, I'm not sure I want to put that in that sale. Now they're actively recruiting those kinds of stallions, and I think the synthetic tracks have played a role in that. People still feel those turf sires are going to be good on the synthetics. Again, this horse has a very good proven record in Europe, and so he sort of fits the bill for this auction.
Glenye, on that front, in fact, as you said that, it made me think potentially with a general mindset shift of racing for profit as opposed to racing to get to the shed. Horses like maybe English Channel and Artie Schiller, Leroy d'Animo, you mentioned Oasis Dream, those that are Purim, those that are basically figuring to be turf sires, what they may be getting you are horses that are going to be sound, slower, and grass, meaning nice long careers with potential to end up making some money. And how much of that do you think figures into this?
I think that is very much figuring into it. Now, the big variable, though, is the purses. We've seen purses decline, and that's not good for anybody. If you're buying to pinhook a horse, in other words, to resell it at a 2-year-old sale, you still need to impress the end users, the owners who are going to race that animal. If they feel that they do not have a shot to make even, to break even on the purses, that's going to diminish your market somewhat. And obviously, if you're breeding to race or buying a horse to race yourself, again, it's the same equation. They're looking at those purses, and I think people are a little worried. So that's a long-term macroeconomic problem for the business that has to be solved in order for owners to continue to feel confident. But getting back to the bloodlines, yes, I think that's exactly right. And I think in a way that's a very good thing. Those freshman sires were great, they were hot, they had a lot of sizzle on them, but the horses that are going to be sound, get you long-term success, have long careers, I think everybody agrees that's not bad for racing either.
We've heard already that Sheikh Mo is in town, and everyone concentrates a little bit on what's going to happen with the Coolmore and with the Godolphin Darley operations. However, the European, the international clients, I know that Fasig-Tipton being hailed for going out of their way and recruiting potential buyers in for this sale. Last year we talked repeatedly about how this sale was identified as almost the rallying point for optimism and for a general feeling that things were maybe moving back toward normalcy. You coined the phrase solidity, I think, or something.
I don't think I coined it, but I've used it.
There you go. In terms of attracting new buyers, we talked about this when I've had you on the radio, whether it was the 2-year-old in training sales or whether it was the early sale at OBS for the new yearlings. How much sense is there that there's actual money from new people that want to get in?
We have seen some new money come in, particularly at the 2-year-old sales. Now that makes sense because if you're in a down economy, if there's a recession on, if you're not entirely sure how the economy is going to play out, but you have some money that you can use to buy racehorses, then a lot of those people, understandably, will opt for 2-year-olds who are closer, theoretically, in fact, to racing. So that makes sense. I think we've seen some influx into the 2-year-old sales from new owners. It remains to be seen how active new people are going to be in the yearling market. And this particular yearling sale is not always the easiest place for people to jump in. It's a highly select catalog. It caters toward a highly select kind of buyer. There are certainly horses that are in there that can be had for reasonable prices, but I think a lot of people, just due to the prestigious reputation of this sale and the kind of numbers that it puts out, are going to be a little bit hesitant to jump right in and buy 100% of a horse at a sale like this. That's not to say it won't or can't happen, and I certainly hope for the industry that it does. We need more new buyers. But this is a tough sell right now because of those purse levels too. What Fasig Tipton is trying to do, as well as other people in the industry, is to sell that this is a good time to buy in. The prices are somewhat deflated. You're not going to be paying, a 50% premium on a horse anymore. The economy simply has not held up that way for these horses. It's a great time to buy. That's the message that's being put across. For less money up front, you still get all the action of the racing and of owning a horse. So here's hoping for them that it sells.
Glenye, in terms of the credit situation from the sales companies, from Fasig, from Keeneland, where do things stand? Because there's stories of stud fees that have gone unpaid for 2 years now, at least, and then there's also the concern that the credit availability and Fasig, I think last year, had extended that early 45-day payback. Where do things stand with the liquidity on that end?
The credit crunch is still very much an issue for people in the horse business at pretty much every level. Now, what I have heard, although people at the sales companies won't really confirm it, is that for some cases, if they have, for example, a buyer who wants to buy yearlings to resell as 2-year-olds, that they might be able to help them float a little bit on the payment of the yearling, particularly if they feel good that that client is going to come back and sell the horse as a 2-year-old. Now, again, no confirmation of that publicly coming out of the sale companies, for good reason. You can see why they wouldn't want to say who they're letting float and who they're not. But that certainly is the word on the street. The credit situation is pretty dire for a lot of people in the breeding business in particular, because it's an agribusiness. You can't really pay your bills until the crop has been sold, and as you know, there's a very long time frame for selling yearlings and 2-year-olds both. So it's definitely going to have an impact on people. And again, I think it's going to have an impact on buyers generally, but it's the pinhookers in particular that need that credit.
Why don't we jump in now? As I said earlier, it's great for fans to go over and watch the sales. It gives you a different perspective on the game, and those really are the biggest gamblers in the sport, in my opinion. Now, you covering the breeding industry are going to have a real eye for maybe some of the hip numbers that if people go over there tonight, and both tonight and tomorrow, it starts at 7 p.m., and it's right up East Avenue. It's about a block up from the racetrack. So come on up and watch it. And Glenye, why don't you just give us some hip numbers that might be fun for people to watch?
Sure. The sale is 2 nights, and I've got more for tonight because, of course, that's when this show is airing. But one that is for tomorrow that I want to mention and lead off with, because he just got a big boost. He hardly needed it. But hip number 142, who sells Tuesday night, is a half-brother to Looking at Lucky. If a horse never needed a boost, that was one, but he got one anyway with that Haskell win. So certainly a little more sizzle gets put on hip number 142. That horse is being sold by Gainesway, who has topped this auction before. And so I'm sure they're now cheering and thrilled and hoping that maybe they can top it with this one. He's certainly one to look for. Something else to note, of course, if you were a Go Sapper fan, there's a full brother to Go Sapper who's hip number 12. That's going to be a really nice animal to look at too if you're a racing fan. It's also a half to City Zip, if you remember City Zip, turned into a decent sort of a sire as well. Adina Springs is selling that one. The Oasis Dream that we were talking about earlier, there's a filly tonight, hip number 43, Oasis Dream out of Devout. That's from the family of New Approach. Now that's going to be an interesting thing too. You might remember that Sheikh Mohammed bought New Approach among a big draft of horses that he purchased in 2007, 2008. And so I'm sure that Oasis Dream, Juddmonte breeding from that family, is designed to have an appeal for Sheikh Mohammed, and we do know he is on the sales grounds. He's going to be a big factor. I think a lot of people have pointed horses to this sale on the understanding that this horse might have a little bit of an appeal to the Arabs, and that's what people really want, is to see Sheikh Mohammed walking in their barn with interest in a horse. There's also a Street Cry, hip number 47. from the family of One Cool Cat. That's another one that's sure to have some European appeal as well as some American appeal. Both the Oasis Dream and that Street Cry are in TaylorMade's consignment. And there's another one, again, appeals to pretty much anybody, but certainly to Sheikh Mohammed, potentially. A Dynaformer 3/4 sister to Electrocutionist. Now, you don't get much better than that. That's a 3 chimneys filly, and it's hip number 50. And there are several more if you want me to keep on going.
Yeah, give us a couple more.
All right, hip number 2 is a Corinthian half-brother to Icon Project that Woodford Thoroughbreds has brought here. Again, nice breeding with a wide appeal. For racing fans, again, hip number 31, a half to Lost in the Fog by Hard Spun. I know the Hard Spuns are widely anticipated. Everybody was very eager to see those foals. Again, one of those sires that's having first horses here at this sale. So that's going to be...
he was just a fun horse on the racetrack.
He was
I'm
just
going to
a
be
lot of
excited
fun.
to see his horses hit the racetrack.
Had a huge number of fans, and again, Sheikh Mohammed appeal because he, of course, now stands Hard Spun. And he's one of the first crop horses here at this auction, and that's always going to be interesting to see, particularly in an economy where people have favored proven sires. These are some exciting freshmen, so this might buck the trend a little bit. The Corinthian that I mentioned earlier is also a first crop sire, so that's another one who's a fresh young face. In the solid proven performer with high value, the blue chip sire category, again, we have hip number 99 and APND. Again, you cannot top APND these days. That's a very interesting family because the dam is a half sister to the dams of Super Saver and Bluegrass Cat. And what's not to like about that? That is in the Hillendale consignment. So those are some of the ones that I'm really going to be keeping an eye on this evening.
Can't let you wrap up, Glenye, without mentioning the last kitten.
That's right. The last kitten. The one of the last 3 Stormcat yearlings, his very last crop. There were only 3. They're all selling this year. Only one is selling here at Saratoga. She will sell tomorrow night. She's hip number 153, and she's out of a grade 3 winner in Rich Woman. And what a really interesting prospect that is. Could be a good fight between Sheikh Mohammed and Coolmore.
Glenye, Cain, Oakford, happy to have your insights into the sale tonight. Again, have people head over at 7 p.m. tonight, 7 p.m. tomorrow night, and look up some of those hip numbers as being potential big sellers over there. Right now, we're going to wrap up once again, come back for our next segment as Keyword Saratoga continues.
We are back, Keyword Saratoga, Seth Merrow, Steve Beck, and really pleased to bring an absolute broadcasting legend to Keyword Saratoga, Tommy Roberts, the chairman of Roberts Communications, well known throughout the industry, obviously, as really the creator, the originator of simulcasting.
If you're watching horse racing, you're watching Roberts Communications.
You see the vans, now you see the man. Yeah. Tommy, thanks
Steve, Seth, nice to be with you.
Well,
That was a memorable day. I got licensed in 1984 in Las Vegas, Nevada, and I was almost on food stamps if it didn't work, but I bought the rights to
That's what Las Vegas is all about, baby.
That's it. Hi, Roller.
I bought the rights to 30 racetracks for their television signals and sold them to every casino in Nevada. And then we started sending the signals to other racetracks, and that's how it all got started. Our latest venture, my son Todd runs the company now, and he sends me the food stamps every week. And we just started with the Dish Network, 80 channels of horse racing. You pick the track, you pick the race you want to watch. If you have Dish Network, you can see it. But thank you for allowing me the commercial.
Yeah,
I brought some entertaining pieces of video of things that I've been involved with over the years. And this first one was a race that I created back in 1978 when I was vice president, general manager at Hialeah. And it was a race designed for Seattle Slew. It was for a handicap for the 4-year-olds. And Derby winners were preferred. If you had won the Ohio Derby, the Jersey Derby, the Kentucky Derby, Well, unfortunately, Slew got sick the night before we opened, and we had to do the race without him. Well, as it turned out, I had sold 4 races to ABC, and Roone Arledge was in the control room at ABC. He was the legendary TV icon. And during rehearsal, Eddie Arcaro, who was color man, said he was going to pick Bob's Dusty at 9-1 to win the race. So I'm told that Roone sent word to one of the producers, bet 200 to win, 200 to place on Bob's Dusty. Then the producer said to me, when you call the race, make sure you watch for Bob's Dusty. And I don't know what he's talking about. So then he said, Roone's watching. Well, I figured Roone was, well, anyway. Here, listen to the call that I did for Eddie Arcaro's selection. And then I'll tell you the rest of the story.
Invitational Challenge Cup was run, as a matter of fact, just a short while ago during the fight. And Al Michaels and Eddie Arcaro were there at Hialeah. Here they are right now, Al Michaels.
Frank Gifford.
That beautiful sight, the flamingos in the lakes in the infield, indigenous to just one racetrack in all the world. Beautiful. Hialeah Park in Greater Miami. And a good feature race coming up today. The first Hialeah Challenge Cup Invitational. $100,000 purse. And the winner will take home $65,000 in addition to that cup that you see in the winner's circle. It's a mite chilly and breezy here in Florida today. Nonetheless, a good crowd, about 20,000 at Hialeah. They are not complaining about the weather when they think about the rest of the country. Hello again, everybody. I'm Al Michaels, welcoming you to the first Hialeah Challenge Cup race. And this is a race that was really designed for Seattle Slew. He is on the grounds. He would have been in the race, but those of you who follow thoroughbred racing know that he has been ailing. And here is some videotape of Slew outside his stall this morning. His immediate future, of course, he will not be racing here at Hialeah. And as far as any more racing is concerned, we will just have to wait and see. Nonetheless, in the field today for this race at Hialeah, a good field of 4-year-olds. You take a look at the field. On the pole, Bob's Dusty with Julio Espinoza. Number 2 is BRAC'S Hilarious, the Canadian filly champion. Northernette at 111. Number 3, Fort PREVEL is number 4. Replant comes in from California. Number 5, Run Dusty Run, second in the Kentucky Derby. And Preakness to Seattle Slew is 6. Silver Series is number 7. And on the outside, number 8 is Baldski. Calling the race for us today will be the Vice President and General Manager here at Hialeah, veteran race caller Tommy Roberts. And here to analyze the race with me is one of the greatest jockeys, of course, of all time, Eddie Arcaro. And we've got a fine field of 4-year-olds here. How do you see the race shaping up, Eddie?
Al, this turned out to be a great race, even with Seattle Slew out of it. We have horses like Bob's Dusty, Northernette, a great filly, Run Dusty Run, and Silver Series. These are the best 4-year-olds in America. And I think it's going to be a super race with a lot of speed coming from Silver Streak and Northernette. And I kind of like Bob's Dusty to pick them all up.
And there is Eddie Arcaro's choice. Bob's Dusty, number 1. Julio Espinoza up 116 pounds. Number 2 is BRAC'S Hilarious with Robert Woodhouse. Northernette, number 3 with Jorge Velasquez. There is Northernette. Number 4 is Fort PREVEL. Don MacBeth is the rider. Replant with Sandy Hawley is number 5. Then Run Dusty Run, Silver Series, and Baldski as they load into the starting gate. And now for the call of the race Let's go to Tommy Roberts.
Thank you, Al. Number 7, Silver Series, the favorite in high weight at 122 with Ron Turcotte riding, the rider of Secretariat, you'll recall. And on the outside, the speedball, Balski, with Jesus Rodriguez up. We look for Balski and Northernette to go for the early lead. Maybe Silver Series. They're off. A good start. All the lead on the outside. Silver Series, Balski, and down between horses, Replant, and between Silver Series and Replant is Run Dusty Run. Let's watch them move into this clubhouse turn. Well, there's no crowding. Silver Series trying to get a position. You saw him move down along the inside, and as they come out of the clubhouse turn, Replant, the California Invader, has the lead a length. Run Dusty Run second, Silver Series third, 4 lengths back to Balski as they've gone the quarter in 22 and 4. A pretty quick pace as they curl into the back stretch. Replant on the lead, Run Dusty Run second, Silver Series third. In 4th place, it's Balski, then Bob's Dusty. Then comes Northernette, who did not get away quickly as expected. Next, it's BRACH'S Hilarious in the trailer, PREVEL, who comes out of it anyway. Down the backstretch they go to the 5/8 pole, the half in a speedy 45 and 4. And on the lead, it's Replant with Sandy Hawley. Run Dusty Run closer than usual, prompting him on the outside is Silver Series. And now those two go up at the half-mile pole to challenge Replant for the lead. 3 lengths farther back. We have Balski, Bob's Dusty now beginning to make a move. Northernette, PREVEL, and BRACH'S Hilarious trails. They've gone 3 quarters in a sizzling 109 and 4. And as they have 5/16 remaining, it's Run Dusty Run and Silver Series, the high weight, the co-high weight, the 2 choices with a quarter of a mile remaining. They're nose to nose, stride for stride. Along the inside, Bob's Dusty. On the outside, Silver Series. Here comes Bob's Dusty with a late charge. Down on the rail, Run Dusty Run. Silver Series right alongside. Bob's Dusty with Brown gaining strides, trying to chop the margin, but the 2 leaders won't give up. On the inside, Run Dusty Run. The outside, Silver Series whipping, driving, pushing, and it's going to be a photo finish. And I think Run Dusty Run may have gotten it over Silver Series with Bob Dusty, Northernette, PREVEL, Replant, BRACH'S Hilarious, and Balski as they go under the wire in 1:47 and 3. The track record is 1:46 and 2. So a beautiful photo finish, a tight one the camera will have to decide. And now back to Al Michaels and Eddie Arcaro.
Good call, and thank you, Tommy. And so Run
club
Dusty
in Miami,
Run, Silver Series.
We're back, and Tommy, no matter what you were trying to do there, you couldn't get Bob's Dusty up for Roone Arledge.
I tried. Eddie was a great jockey and a lousy handicapper. We were good buddies. We played golf almost every day at Lagorce Country Club in Miami, and there wasn't a day that went by that I didn't remind him that was the last television work I ever did for ABC, or that he ever did for ABC. His handicapping got us fired.
You know, as the race was being run, and Seth, how much fun is this?
That was a real blast from the past. Al Michaels with the afro, and the jockeys in there, Ron Turcotte, George Velasquez on board.
Brumfield and Howley, and we were watching, and one of the things, and we may have to table that conversation, but this is from an era when there was packages, as you put together, on radio and on smaller television group networks, as opposed to just the track announcer being up in the booth and the track announcer making the call. Here you were, and you've done everything, football, basketball, you name it, and you're calling a race. I mean, it's a totally different era.
The other thing was I always tried to get our racing off of the sports page, out of the racing forum, to other areas.
Sure.
Like the financial section, the society page, the entertainment section.
Yep.
My good friend Ed Sullivan, he was a fan of racing, by the way, decided to do something at Hialeah. So we put together a bit where I got 7 jockeys and I rehearsed them, and I wrote a parody to Hello Dolly, which was popular at the time.
Sure.
And it was Hello Eddie. It's nice and warm, it's lots of fun, lots of sun, bet a buck, bet with Lady Luck. And the inference was that these riders are going to put somebody on the lead, let him win a bet just to see him smile, because I'm a really good shoe and you never smile.
Oh, geez,
so that was the premise.
funny.
The only thing is that they forgot to run the scroll with the parody lyrics on the TV set. So if you want to hear the funny part of the song, you're going to have to listen.
We're just waiting for this to be queued up now. So while we
Okay.
wait, just tell us a little bit. Ed Sullivan, there was there's an archive online of old life photographs, and there was a lot of pictures of Ed Sullivan at the races. I guess he was a big fan.
He was a big fan, and every time he came into Miami, we'd go have dinner. And he would stay at the Eden Rock Hotel, and they had in the Pompeii room, the table right inside the entrance, table for 8, they'd put him. And I've never met a celebrity in my life that did what Ed Sullivan did. He'd be ready to take a bite of steak, and somebody would grab his arm, and he'd get up out of his chair and stand up and say, Steve, are you from Syracuse? Oh, yes, Steve. Do you know Seth writes the column, the sports column? Yeah. When you get back to Syracuse, call him and tell him I said hello. Now, who do you want this to? Mary? And how would you like it? And he'd sit down. Oh, yes. What is your name? And he would. I said, Ed, why don't we take a table back around the corner? He said, I feel I owe it to the people.
We got the tape. The tape is all queued up and ready to go now. So here's a little look at the Ed Sullivan tape.
Yeah.
As our show commences, join us now at the world-famed Howley racetrack, where Tommy Roberts has been rehearsing 7 top jockeys for this very unusual opening. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, our show has returned to Hialeah Racetrack to incorporate a scene from Hialeah Racetrack with these singing jockeys here for our Sunday night show. Now, the parody to Hello Dolly, which you're going to sing for us, we trust, has been written by sportscaster Tommy Roberts. Now, the lead tenors have been appointed: Fred Capacelli, Fred Hooper, and Lou Wilson. Lead baritones, Jerry Brady and Mike Casal. The lead bass, Gene Maury. So now, ladies and gentlemen, the song is about to start. I give you now sportscaster Tommy Roberts. Tommy.
Thank you very much, Ed. Actually, the members of our singing aggregation are some of the top riders we have in the country. Here is Bobby Ussery, 3 times the leading rider at Hialeah. Johnny Sellers, who won the Derby with Carryback. Bill Boland, who 2 weeks ago won the Seminole Handicap here with Sunstruck. Hialeah's current leading rider, Mike Venezia, the sensational New York apprentice. A longtime New York favorite, Con Errico. Popular New Jersey reinsman, Gene Monticelli. Rounding out our group, stylish Larry Adams, a favorite in New York. Now, to tie this musical experience together, I'd like to give you the Count Basie of the backstretch, the Paderewski of the press box, the racing writer for the New York Times, Joe Nichols and his boys.
Hello, Dolly. Well, hello, Dolly. It's so nice to have you back where you...
Come on now, everybody, sing it out there.
You're looking swell.
Brumfield, the sensational Lees from Florida State University. Let's have a fine welcome for them.
Here we come. That was hilarious.
Unbelievable.
Absolutely.
We had a lot of fun doing it. The guys were very serious about rehearsing and learning it. Now, in 1973, I was producing the OTB show from the Big A. And I happened to be in the president's office. Jack Crumpy was president then. And he casually mentioned, by the way, in about 30 minutes, Secretariat's going to do a farewell appearance. Would you be interested in that? I said, hello. I ran through the bowels of the track yelling to my people, get me a camera, get me a microphone, get in the winner's circle. And everybody, we weren't set up on Thursday. I ran down to the winner's circle, and this is what took place, the farewell of Secretariat, which really was a spur-of-the-moment piece of video.
And I think we're ready to go with that.
Yeah.
It'd be difficult for the Canadian filly to carry her speed all the way, as game as she did show up in those films.
That's right, and also I think Riva Ridge does have some speed. I don't know what he's going to do today, but if he goes out with her and they go together, I'm afraid they're going to be in trouble when they get down ahead of that stretch.
Okay, we're gonna redo on that one. We had a bunch of videos on our DVD, and got them kind of out of sequence, but we'll get that Secretariat video up in just a moment.
So this was actually just Secretariat coming back to he came back to New York and was going to be paraded
after he ran in Canada, his last race, came back to New York. Lucian Larn had him stabled there at Aqueduct, and they decided, and you know, it was so casual, there was no big publicity about it, and you know, like they used to say, the Belmont race was always the 8th race on the card, and that was about it. Yeah. Well, they didn't publicize this, and Jack just mentioned to me, Secretariat's going to say goodbye. Let's take a look.
We're ready to roll.
We got it? Okay.
Well, the year 1973 shall forever be memorable in racing because 1973 is the year of Secretariat. But it's also the year of the Meadow Stable, and its president, Mrs. John Tweedy, better known as Penny, Miss Elizabeth Ham, and trainer Lucian Larn. It was their year as well. Penny, with the roses in your arms, the plaudits of the crowd in the background, and a slight tear in your eye, can we share this moment?
Well, I'm watching Secretariat on the track for the last time, and it has to be a difficult moment. He's been such a wonderful horse. It hurts to retire him, that's all I can say.
Well, we wish him well.
We've been grateful for him, but it's too bad.
Needless to say, we wish him well.
Thank you.
Can you give us the one highlight in 2 years?
Well,
among many?
It would certainly be the Belmont race. That was the most thrilling and the most impressive. And, of course, it sealed the Triple Crown, so it was the best.
Fine. It's been an exciting 2 years. And, Lucian, among all the hard work and the pressure, the anxiety that I know you've had, can you pick out the one instance among many that you treasure most?
Well, I think that Mrs. Tweedy just said it a little while ago. I thought the Belmont, naturally, we had already won 2 out of the 3, and we want to win the Belmont so bad that I thought it was the greatest day of my life for the horse. I think it's the greatest horse I ever trained as long as I live. Believe me, he's a hell of a horse.
I can believe it, and so can millions of racing fans around the world. Lucian, congratulations on a job well done with one of God's perfect specimens.
Thank you very much, Tommy.
And Miss Ham, the roses and the farewells are yours to share today as well.
Thank you very much.
How do you feel?
Well, happy. I'm glad he came through it, and it's been a wonderful year, and we're going to try to have some more for you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Secretariat Horse of the Year last year is a 2-year-old, syndicated for a record $6,080,000 to stand at stud starting November 15th. In his career, he started 21 times, 16 wins, 3 seconds, a third, and a fourth. The first Triple Crown winner in 25 years, he set an American record of 2 minutes 24 seconds for a mile and a half in winning the Belmont Stakes by 31 lengths. He set a world record of 1 minute 45 and 2/5 in beating the best of the handicap horses in the mile and a furlong Marlboro Cup handicap. And of his 14 victories, or of his victories, I should say, 14 of them came in stakes events.
His career earnings of $1,316,808 place him fourth on the list of all-time money earners. There's some $14,000 worth of uncashed mutual tickets still outstanding. Greater love for a horse hath no race fan than one who holds on to a winning ticket on his idol as a memento rather than cash it. Tied 5 records this year in amassing that $1,300,000. And he becomes the criterion by which all other horses must be judged. Secretariat, horse of many a year. This is Secretariat in the Kentucky Derby.
Secretariat in the center of the track is rolling like a runaway freight down a mountainside. On the inside, it's Sham. On the outside, Secretariat. In third place, Shacky Green. An eighth of a mile to go. Secretariat is in front by a length and a half, and pulling away. The rest nowhere. Secretariat and Sham humbling the field. Secretariat is in front. Here's the finish. Secretariat a length and a half.
In the Preakness,
Secretariat has the lead by a length and a half. Sham is coming under left-handed whipping, but Secretariat is equal to the challenge. It's Secretariat pulling away by 1, by 2, by 3. Secretariat wins.
And in the Belmont Stakes.
And now it's Secretariat in a race against time. Ron Turcotte on his belly seems determined to try and smash the track record. And that's the battle right now. It's Secretariat going 1:59 for the mile and a quarter. And he swings for home. He's some 15 in front and widening. My Gallon is coming on with Twice a Prince. But it's Secretariat with an eighth of a mile to go. Turcotte looks back. The crowd goes wild. It is Secretariat bidding this field good afternoon and winning the Triple Crown.
Are we back?
We are back.
We're back. We're back, Tommy. Unbelievable footage of Secretariat that hasn't been seen in decades.
Yeah, since the Saturday show that we did.
Unbelievable. Tommy, we can't thank you enough. And this, I guarantee you, everybody that's watched has enjoyed it immensely because it's stuff that nobody has seen. I can't thank you enough.
Well,
and we'll see you soon. And
enjoy sharing it with you.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, Tommy, that was great. We really appreciate you being on the show. Fun show. I hope you had as much fun watching as we had doing it this afternoon. And don't forget, races today and the sales tonight and tomorrow night over there. So make your way up to Saratoga today for a beautiful day of the races and an evening watching the big gamblers across the street. Another edition of Keyword Saratoga in the books. We're here every Monday morning from 10:30 until 11:30. We're bumping right up to Talking Horses today, so stay tuned for that as they'll give you some tips on the action this afternoon over at the racetrack. We'll see you next week. Keyword Saratoga is wrapping for this afternoon. See you then.
For comments or suggestions, please write to the General Manager at the OTB Television Network, 510 Smith Street, Schenectady, New York, 12305.